All right, it's 5 o'clock, time to get down to business. I will call today's meeting to order. Today we acknowledge that this event is taking place on the traditional territory of the Indigenous peoples of Turtle Island, including the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Ojibwe peoples, and the lands connected with the Lake Simcoe and Ottawasaga Treaty of 1818. This is the home of a diverse range of Indigenous peoples whom we recognize as contemporary stewards of the land and vital contributors of our society. I will look to the Deputy Mayor for the adoption of the agenda.
Thank you, Mayor Saunderson. It's moved by me and seconded by Councillor Comey. Be it resolved that the content of the Council agenda for February the 18th, 2020 be adopted as amended. And there are two items. One is the removal of item 17.1, in-camera discussion, RE Huntingwood appeal. And the second is the addition of a deputation from my friend's house.
That sounds like an excellent trade. So I will call the vote. All in favor? That is carried unanimously. Declarations of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Any declarations, Council? Seeing none, if you find yourself in that situation as the meeting progresses, please let us know. Adoption of the minutes, 4.1. Councillor McLeod.
Be it resolved that the minutes of the council meeting held January 27th, 2020 be approved as presented. That is moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Madigan.
Thank you. Any errors or omissions, Council? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Any business arising from the previous minutes? All right, seeing none, we will go on to community announcements, and we have recognition of Heritage Week. Collingwood Heritage Committee Chair Betty Donner is here. Come on forward, please, Betty.
Now, I'm not sure how to turn this up on screen.
We can have some assistance there. Are you able to?
Well, while he's doing that, there's that's the wrong one.
That's ACO, we're looking for a Heritage Committee. Go
Deputy
ahead, Betty.
Mayor, councillors, and everybody who is in attendance, thank you very much for coming tonight, and welcome to Heritage Week. Yes, what? Put the mic down. Okay.
No, we can't hear you.
Okay, but welcome to Heritage Week. This is an exciting week. There. Now can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
speaking to that,
Okay.
it'll make it easier for our listeners.
Alrighty, so do you want me to go through the, or thank you, Mayor Scott, you're
You're
good
good.
on that
Go
part?
ahead, Betty.
Okay.
You've got us on page
So,
here.
Heritage Week, February 17th to 20th. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. Now to get to the next slide. There we go. Heritage Advisory Committee members. I'm co-chair with Andrea Leeming. I think you've met Andrea before. Our members are David Craig, who has been on for 2 terms as well. Alyssa Ferris, Jennifer McEwen, Kelly Nesbitt. BIA representative is Penny Skelton. Our staff resources are Candace, I don't know what we'd do without her, Lindsay Cook from the museum. And I'd also like to thank Adam Farr too for all the help that he's been giving us over the last little while. Heritage, the red outline on this map is Collingwood's Heritage District. The buildings within it are considered a Part 5, which means the property are in the Heritage District are designated heritage. The buildings outside the districts, that is yellow, and the yellow ones inside, means the actual owner of the property has individually designated the property as heritage, and they've had a heritage impact assessment done by a professional heritage consultant. I want people to notice that the Spit is part of the Heritage District and the terminals are designated building, okay? The Heritage District buildings, the Heritage District includes buildings on the Spit, including the terminals along Huron Street, down St. Marie Street, Pine Street, here Ontario Street, and all the buildings within the red line marking are designated as Heritage Part 5. The picture is showing the old terminals as well as the new terminals behind it, and the picture belongs to the museum. I have to tell you that. Heritage property relief. tax relief. This is a provincial program available as a financial tool for municipalities to help owners maintain and restore their properties for the benefit of the entire community today and into the future. Throughout Ontario, conserving heritage properties has helped revitalize historic downtown centres and attract residents, businesses, and visitors to the communities. A total of 45 applications received in 2019 with approximate refund from all government levels of $33,000. The 2019 Heritage Grants at work, we processed 10 Heritage Grant applications resulting in over $65,315.19 in construction value to the Heritage Building. That brings in a lot of revenue to the town. The Heritage newsletter is published semi-annually. It's direct mail to all the owners of the designated properties. It's available at the library, the building department, the town hall, and the museum. They're talking about making it non-paper. I think that might be a mistake for seniors. They like to have something in their hands, but I'm sure the town will figure it out and do what's best for them. Our walking tour brochures, including the East, West, and the side of Collingwood and the downtown, will be reprinted again in 2020. This will be the third printing for some of the brochures. We are also going to change some of the text and colors on the brochures to make them more recognizable. Some people didn't realize there was actually 3 brochures for downtown, east, and west. And also I want to mention the Look Up tour, which is the architectural tour for looking up and seeing what's going on top of the buildings. It's very interesting. Margie Moy had a lot to do with putting that together. Our partnerships are the Collingwood Museum, downtown Collingwood, the Collingwood Library, Gaslight, ACO, Simcoe County Archives, the Historical Society, and the Center for Business and Economic Development. New and exciting in heritage, creating a Doors Open subcommittee that will work with Simcoe County for better promotion. Last year's was a little tough because we had what's the thing called? The exhibition and something else. You know what I'm talking about. Okay. Still receiving applications to the major restoration and redevelopment program. Building our budget for future heritage studies, including a request for proposal for expansion of the Heritage District. We also proposed to Council increasing the percentage related to the Heritage Tax Relief Program in the future on November 18th, 2019. Okay. I made a mistake somewhere here. There we go. Okay. I'm sorry. Heritage updates, the heritage designations. This is 400 Maple Street, and the Town Council passed a bylaw to designate 400 Maple Street as a property of cultural heritage value or interest under Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act. The Victoria Annex was part of the Central Victoria Public School that was on Maple Street in 1894, and all of the building except for the annex was demolished in 1969. The benefits of designating the property are that any proposed alterations or repairs require a heritage permit, and as such will ensure the protection of the identified heritage attributes of the building. Designation does not restrict the use of the property. Rather, it affords the protection to prevent any unsympathetic changes and delays in demolition, if applied for, to allow the owner, council, and staff to explore alternative options for redevelopment. Designation of a culturally significant heritage resource enhances the town's strategic plan objectives, and to continue recognition of Collingwood's unique heritage while promoting the cultural heritage value of the community. Request for designation from owners of 243 Birch Street. I went to the library, and in the impact files, it's hard to tell here, but the 3 I was trying to show you what it looked like. I think the impact files were done about 15, 20 years ago. The bottom picture is one of what the house looks like now, and you can see that they have been continuing the upgrade. The property was originally owned by Frederick Baumeister, who changed his name to Burmeister. He was a fisherman, and he was the grandfather of Frederick Loudon. And the house was built in or around 1886 or 1888. No changes have been made to the exterior design. Black and white photos are from the impact files, as I said. The family has been maintaining the property, wood trim and painting for the last 122 years. Okay, this is a picture of World War I, and the people are marching home, and I don't know how to get the pointer to work.
The red button.
The red button? The red button, there we go. So what I want to show you here is this wall, and I'm going to talk about it right now. The stone rubble wall in front of Old Town Terrace, also known as the Ditson House, was built of local rubble and is noted as a rare piece of traditional stone masonry in a brick town, end of quotations, by architect and planner Philip H. Carter in the Collingwood Downtown Heritage Conservation District Inventory of Buildings. In fact, its existence may predate the Great Fire of 1881. This is an excerpt from the Collingwood Today article dated December the 2nd, 2018 by Melissa Shaw at the Collingwood Museum. This next slide shows what this wall looks like today, and the wall is undergoing work to reinforce and secure the structure. Also, the new owners have contacted ACO and the building department regarding the removal of the paint from the brick and to repair the building. So we're eagerly looking forward to the finished product. That's a little too far away for me to read. I'm sorry. I can't see that far, but I'm going to read what I have in my notes here. You can read the slide. I'm sorry. The Heritage Committee recognized the importance of celebrating our cultural community history and diversity. We celebrate the intangible cultural heritage of the people and societies beyond just our built heritage. The Heritage Committee is committed to try to partner with various diverse community groups. The UNESCO Declaration of Cultural Diversity adopted in 2001 states that, quotation, as a source of exchange, innovation, and creativity, cultural diversity is as necessary for humankind as biodiversity is for nature, end quote. The Heritage Committee agrees with this understanding and seeks to participate in the recognition and affirmation of our diverse community for the benefit and presentation of future generations. At the bottom, you can see the, because it's in bigger print, the Away gathering places, a space of sharing, learning, teaching, ceremonies, celebration, and contemplation created by the town of Collingwood advanced recognition in the past presence of Indigenous people and their heritage, like you can see in Collingwood and the surrounding area. Awen is Wendat word for water. And we are a nation, or the Saugeen Nation, sorry, I can't read it. I'm sorry. Can you read it, Candace? Can you read the top one? No? I can't read it.
I can
It's too
follow
far
up with that. So
away.
the Ojibwe Nation is the traditional territory of the Chippewas of Saugeen First Nation and the Nawash Unceded First Nation. Collectively, the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation encompasses much of the Saugeen Bruce Peninsula, extending south of Goderich and east of Collingwood. It includes over 4,500 members within that broader community. The Ojibwe heritage is rich in color and expression, and this is evident in their dance, works of art, and handmade craft creation. So we want to celebrate as well the intangible cultural heritage of their practices and their societies.
Thank you. I didn't want to offend anybody. Okay. So this next picture is the British Methodist Episcopal Church, located where the Heritage Community Church now sits at the south side of 7th and Walnut Street. The writing on the back of the top of the photograph states built in 1871, burned in 1898. Again, it's a picture from the Collingwood Museum. It's time to celebrate and honor our achievements and contributions of Black Canadians in shaping Canada's rich cultural heritage and identity. The Sheffield Park Black History and Cultural Museum preserves the history of the Black pioneers and settlers of Collingwood and the surrounding area. This year, the Sheffield Park Black History and Cultural Museum will be celebrating 30 years of programming. The museum is open from May to October, and it's located in Thornbury. We have an educational workshop coming up. It's going to be on Tuesday, May the 5th, 2020, from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. on the 3rd floor of the library, community rooms B and C. And the person who's going to be doing the workshop is David Wiley, Restoration Limited, and he's from Lyle. And if you look at the pictures, this house is the original house of what it looked like. Then they took all the heritage fixtures and they made it into this. And now he's gone in and he's rebuilt it, making the porch a little bit bigger, but he's taken it back to what the original looked like. They had to bring cranes in and everything in order to put that roof on. This is a picture of, here is the picture of the window, stained glass window that they did. They redid it for the church of in Lyle. And this is another one where they've taken a house that lost all its heritage features and they redid it with the gingerbread look and the large porch. So he does know what he's doing, and it would be nice if people came. And I went for the wrong. No? Okay. I lost my slide.
Back on.
No, that's a start. Anyway, David's mission is to design and build quality constructions that will function in a serviceable manner for many years because wood has been used plentifully as a building material in historic buildings. Attention to detail in design and construction is paramount to ensure the wood is not compromised by weathering and the forces of nature, moisture, rainwater, and sunlight are relentless. So if you have any questions, please bring them and Dave will do his best to answer your concerns and about wood windows, window restoration, or any restorations on a future project. Oh, thank you. You found it again. No, can't change it. All right, thank you very much.
Last slide. It was perfect timing.
Was that my last slide?
Your last slide, I think,
Did I make it in 5 minutes?
roughly.
Okay,
I had to know
thank
the 10,
you.
but any questions, council?
Everybody okay? I missed the part about the fact that we brought a letter, or we were talking to council about having the heritage. If I could just a second. That we went to the development meeting on November the 18th about proposing a tax increase to the heritage property owners to 20%. And council appeared to be interested in the increase, and they're looking at it for the future. I think one of the comments was, are you sure it's enough? So 20% tax increase would really help keep heritage viable in Collingwood. Thank you.
Thank you. And if I can comment, Betty, before you sit down, thank you very much for all the great work you do. I know you didn't mention a couple of recent success stories, and in one of the heritage pamphlets that was up there, it said the end of days, and now days is Black Bellows.
Right.
So that's a wonderful success story for our local community.
It's a great success story,
Yeah.
but it didn't finish in our 2019. It's going to be an award in 2020. It's going to be awarded in 2021.
I'm very glad to
Okay.
hear that.
Yeah.
I know they worked
We'll
very hard
get
on
one.
that.
It's exciting what they did.
Yeah.
Amazing job.
All right then.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much, Betty. Oh, sorry, Deputy Mayor.
I just wanted to make two comments. One is that pleased to hear that the county is going to be involved in some way in assisting with the promotion of the Doors Open program. I think that's a fantastic endeavor and one to see moving forward. The second, if I may, with a bit of latitude, just to pick up on a comment Mr. Larner made, just the timing. I was going to mention this at some point in the meeting tonight, but under cultural significance to our community, this morning on CBC Ontario Morning, there was a story about Black history as it relates to hockey. And within our community, that church on 7th Street, there's a strong connection to the Sheffield family and to Sheffield Park over in Thornbury, but the father, Howard Sheffield, who had 6 children, about 5 at least.
7 or 8.
Yeah.
Everybody forgets about poor Vincent Eunice.
Was a member, and remember when I say this in keeping with the times, but he played in the 1950s for a team over in Forest, and he played on an all-black line. And of course, in the 1950s, to be a black player playing hockey, and secondly, to play on a team that had 3 on the same line was significant. And somebody who grew up in Kitchener-Waterloo, I was aware of the cultural significance, and they used the term the Kraut line to refer to the famous German line that Milt Schmidt centered for the Boston Bruins, the great Boston Bruins. But Howard Sheffield, Art Lowe, and Gary Smith were these 3. And my neighbor today is Red Sheffield, who's a direct descendant of Howard, and Reg's brother, twin brother, Ray, is a member of the Australian Hockey Hall of Fame, and has won their championship, I believe it was 6 times. So anyway, I just wanted to segue off of that reference in your remarks, because their heritage and their significance to the community is quite interesting, and the legacy beyond Collingwood is quite remarkable.
Another, if I can interject, another exciting or very, very important building in that area is the one on the corner of 6th and Walnut. And it's a red brick house. It's just a regular red brick house. But that home was a community. People would come from Meaford, even Owen Sound, all over Collingwood, and also into Queenmore area and that for meetings there, gospel meetings, before and around the time that the church was still there. There was a lot of things going on in that area. So they are a very, very active community in our community.
Good, thank you very much, Betty. And with that, we'll move into community announcements, and you might have already said yours, Deputy Mayor, but you're first up. No, they're under deputy.
My apologies. We are 3 weeks into the bi-weekly rotation of garbage and recycling, and I think generally speaking, from my perspective, from the county perspective, I think that things are going well. The one thing I would just remind people is that, one, if you have been missed, or if you have concern, please convey it to the county. There are multiple ways that you can do so, either calling, emailing, through their social media. They do appreciate and want the feedback. They need to know how this program is unveiling. And the other, and probably the most significant change is, and I've seen this on my street, is that for I can't tell you how many years the garbage was picked up on the dot at 2 o'clock, and now they're literally there at 7:05. And that's been the biggest change. So please, they advertise it being, get your stuff out by 7. Please do.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Councillor McLeod.
I would like to offer my congratulations to a group of 96 curlers from across Southern Ontario who showed up in our town on February the 8th for what is called the Sweethearts Bonspiel. And during the course of the day, they held sort of an informal raffle. I'm hoping I'm not getting them in trouble with the Lottery and Gaming Commission. But they had a little draw, and the proceeds of which were handed over to the folks at our Out of the Cold here in town. And one of the winners actually gave back her winnings in order to give more money to Out of the Cold. And so it started at $1,253 profit from this draw, and by the end of the day, people were rushing up to them and handing over money. And so this particular Bonspiel handed over $1,500 to the Out of the Cold program immediately after its Bonspiel. So I would just like to offer them congratulations and thank the town for its continued support of the curling club, because what you give goes around. So that's my community announcement.
Good news, thank you. Councillor Comey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to say congratulations to the organizers of Galentine's Day, which was held last week at the Gibson. It was a wonderful event to celebrate female friendships and raise money for my friend's house. And then I'd like to remind everybody that the Town of Collingwood's 2nd Annual International Women's Day Forum will bring the people of Collingwood and the surrounding communities together to inspire and advocate for the advancement of gender equality. It promises to be another wonderful event. Tickets are $15 and included catered social afterwards provided by the Lowdown. So you can go to eventbrite.ca or the town website to get your tickets. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Madigan.
I have nothing this evening.
Councillor Doherty.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to remind everyone that the coldest night of the year is this Saturday, February 22nd, and they are still looking for walkers and teams and certainly for donations. The coldest night of the year is in support of Home Horizons. Right now, they are already at just about 60% of their target of $60,000. So it's a great achievement so far, but still a long ways to go, miles to go, no pun intended. We do have a team in the form of Team Collingwood, and so anyone who is interested in joining our team or sponsoring our team would be more than welcome, because we have quite an achievement to exceed from last year. And that's it for me. Thanks.
Yeah, we have some history there, and I've got my hat out ready to go, so I'm ready. Councillor Berman.
Thank you, Mayor Saunderson. I wanted to say a bit about hockey, but I'm still amazed that you managed to do it without mentioning the Habs once. I can only assume it's because pitchers and catchers have reported for the Yankees already. I think we all remember it was less than 14 months ago that Collingwood was the host of Rogers Hometown Hockey. Most of us stood up on the stage with Ron McLean and Tara Sloan, and I don't think any of us knew what would happen over the next year. Less than 3 months later, Collingwood had its very own junior A team, the Collingwood Colts, and it's been quite an exciting season, and I wanted to point out two specific accomplishments. On Valentine's Day last weekend, the Colts shut out Aurora 6-0, and with that win, they clinched a playoff spot in their very first season. And what may be more impressive is that in a league that includes teams from Burlington, Oakville, Mississauga, Toronto, Buffalo, the Collingwood Colts are guaranteed to lead the entire Ontario Junior Hockey League in both attendance and average attendance per game, again in their very first season. Now, our last game before the playoffs takes place this coming Saturday at 3 p.m. It's a significant game for two reasons. First of all, the game will be broadcast live on national TV as the Colts host the Stouffville Spirit on the CHCH-TV OJHL Game of the Week. Even more important is the theme for the game. Earlier this season, the Colts paid tribute to an important era in Collingwood's hockey history by having a shipbuilders game where the entire team wore throwback jerseys. This Saturday, the Colts will be honoring another proud era in our hockey history by having a Collingwood Blues tribute game. There will be videos played of classic Blues games, including a very special championship-winning goal. There will be many players from those past teams at the game, and the Colts will be wearing special Collingwood Blues jerseys for this game. And considering what's been going on with negotiations, this may well be the look you'll see on the ice next season.
Very exciting, thank you very much. And Stouffville is the team that they will likely be playing in the first round of the playoffs, so it will be the beginning of the drug grudge match. So it'll be a good game, and I invite everyone to come out on the 22nd. Councillor Jeffrey.
Thank you very much, Mayor Saunderson. Save the date for everyone for Saturday, March 28th, 2020. The Collingwood Skating Club Carnival is scheduled for 1 to 3. I remember participating in many of those until I was 17 years of age, and it's a very fun time, so I hope we will fill the arena to support those young skaters. And then as well, Council's very keen this year. I also have a team for the Coldest Night of the Year walk. It's the Collingwood Council Challengers, which I've had since the inception of the event. So no matter which member of council that's registered that you support, it is a very important event, and we hope that you will sponsor one of us. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hamlin.
My announcement's directed at those who like monster cakes. Okay. So the Magic of Children has many partners in our community, and one of them is the Blue Mountain Foundation for the Arts. So together they have created the Community Monster Project, and 20 young artists have created drawings, pieces of art of monsters, and then artists in the community have taken those and done their own rendering of each individual child's drawing. And I actually saw one up in the Tremont the other day. Very fascinating to see. Anyway, on March the 7th at 3 p.m. they're having an opening reception. You can go look at the art and enjoy monster cake.
That gives a sugar rush a new meaning, I think. Look forward to that. A few announcements for myself. This past Sunday, I had the wonderful experience of listening to the Honorable Dr. Jean Augustine speak about Black History Month. February is Black History Month in Canada. It's been Black History Month in the States since about 1926, but Jean Augustine, when she was our first female Canadian Black Member of Parliament in 1995, brought a motion in the House of Commons to have February declared as Black History Month in Canada. And the process that she did it, if there was one single objector, the motion would have failed. So we have it today, and that goes to say that it was a unanimous motion in the Canadian Parliament, which I'm fairly certain does not happen frequently. So it was wonderful to hear her story as a pioneer in our culture and in Canada, and the contributions that she has made. It was put together, and the presentation actually took place in the church on 7th Street that Betty Donaher showed us a picture of, although it looks different today. And it was put together by Carolyn Wilson and her sister on behalf of the Sheffield Park Black History Museum. And it was just a very excellent presentation. Number two, I also had the distinct pleasure of playing sledge hockey yet again. It's one of my favorite sports, I gotta tell you. And so off on Family Day yesterday at the Central Park Arena, they had an all-inclusive skate, and we were out on the sledges and had a lot of fun skating with first-timers as well as very experienced, and it wasn't hard to pick them out. And they do have, the CTN, the Children's Treatment Network, it does have inclusive skates 1:30 to 3 p.m. every Sunday, $3 per person or $8 for a family, and they have a limited number of sledges available, so if you want to get out and try it, please do. It's a great way to see a different perspective of a rink. Upcoming from February 21st to 29th, it's Whiskey-licious in Collingwood. And this Friday there'll be a kickoff at the LCBO where you can get Collingwood whiskey in an engraved bottle. So you can get it engraved with your own personal message, maybe to remind yourself when it's time to stop on any given night. But anyway, I recommend it, and then there will be some events around town from restaurants participating using Whiskey-licious in their recipes to also a bartender contest to see who can make the best innovative drink using Collingwood whiskey. So that's a no-lose proposition, and I recommend people come out for that. And finally, to pick up on a little bit on Councillor Berman's announcement, this coming Friday, February 21st, the Colts will be playing, and the proceeds from that will be going to the Sunset Manor Give a Lift Fund to buy a new vehicle for Sunset Manor here in town. It's being sponsored by the County of Simcoe. So Warden George Marshall will be there, Warden George Cornell will be there, and I think Councillor Berman, you'll be participating in that, and it'll be a great day. I ask people to come out so that they can help raise funds for Sunset Manor, and we're hoping to have a great contingent from Sunset Manor out as well that night. So it should be a fun event as they fight for home ice advantage in the first round of playoffs. So with that said, we'll get into deputations, and we have another Heritage Week deputation, a review of opportunities to balance our rich heritage and future vision. Margaret Mouy on behalf of the ACO. Margaret, please come forward. You have 10 minutes.
Do I just push this
To advance, Adam, can you assist?
No, I just
Gonna
push
go?
the button forward, I'm fine. Mayor Saunderson, council, staff and community members. On behalf of ACO, thank you for allowing me to contribute to the celebration of Heritage Week here in Collingwood. The Heritage Committee has already shared some of their activities and goals over the past year. We are a different organization, but we also share many common philosophies. We partner in many activities, and we generally try to support one another. There may be a few overlaps in our presentation, but that just goes to show you that we do have a partnership with each other. The ACO is a provincial group and they have their own mandate, which we do follow. And basically, they're supporting heritage throughout all of Ontario, where our local branch tries to focus on Collingwood. We overlap a little bit with the Collingwood Heritage Committee. We have common goals and mandates, but the Heritage Committee's main purpose is to advise council according to the Ontario Heritage Act. But the members also have a keen interest in the built and cultural heritage of Collingwood, like ACO does. Collingwood ACO also has a liaison with the province, and our organization has 23 branch offices throughout Ontario, and the main office is in Toronto. Because we share a common philosophy, we partner with other Collingwood community groups or associations to co-host speaker series, just like the one that Betty Donaher spoke to about the window series coming up, and contribute to special projects like the walking tours. We participate in community outreach presentations and provide resources and contribute to discussions. As you can see, many of the same symbols are on the screen that the Heritage Committee has, and that's because we partner with so many community groups. It's interesting to note that 80% of our local ACO board are former Heritage Committee members. There are heritage properties in Ontario that require interventions to protect our cultural and built heritage. In 2013, ACO published a list of 80 for 80 to celebrate 80 years of the Architectural Conservancy, and it was an attempt to help to preserve structures and heritage landscapes. In the next 5 years, the total went to 130, and in 2020, this year, we have updated the list once again. Our ACO branch has submitted 3 properties that continue to need intervention or action by the community and the municipality to protect and to preserve them. I know that some of the descriptors coming up are a little small and lengthy, but I would be happy to email the descriptions to anybody that wishes more advice, more information about it. And this particular list that includes our 3 submissions is being taken to Queen's Park this week and presented to members of the park to bring their attention to Heritage Week. The first on our list of interventions is the Collingwood terminals. And some of the members are here tonight in support. And I know the Heritage Advisory Committee just recently passed a motion to advise council that they are on board with protecting and preserving the terminals. There's currently an active community group called Collingwood Terminals and Harbour Action Group that has amassed over 8,000 signatures to protect and to preserve this Collingwood heritage icon. And it is included, as Betty said, in the Heritage Conservation District. Our Collingwood Heritage District Plan states that the grain elevators are the most important industrial site in the district. ACO Collingwood has been involved since 2011, when the council of the time first discussed the possible demolition of the terminals. Currently, ACO is acting as a liaison with the Collingwood Terminals and Harbour Action Group in its effort to restore and to maintain the terminals as part of Collingwood's built and cultural heritage. You can see that there is a lengthy descriptor that I put with the pictures that were sent to ACO Central Office and to be presented to the MPs this week. Our next submission is the Victorian Annex, and our local branch has been involved with promoting adaptive reuse of this property for more than 12 years. We are happy that it now has a heritage designation. We are hopeful that there will be action taken to prevent further demolition by neglect and that council will not grant a request for demolition. Again, a fairly lengthy descriptor, but this goes on file for the future. And the third submission was the Nottawasaga Lighthouse, and again, it is supported by a very strong community group as well, known as NLPS, and ACO supports them in their efforts as a registered charity to restore and to protect the lighthouse. Talks are currently underway with the federal government to acquire ownership of the lighthouse. Hopefully, provincial members of parliament will recognize these efforts when presented with Collingwood submissions this week. And it also has its own list as well. Community outreach. Betty has already talked about this property. ACO shares the advantages of heritage designation with the community. Whenever we get the chance to talk up heritage, we do. And we recently presented this application on behalf of the owners to the committee for consideration at their last meeting. Part 4 designations, and that's what this one would be, is important to encourage heritage designations outside the Heritage Conservation District. Maintaining our tree-lined streetscapes is important as there are presently many infill projects happening. And I think many of council can remember the last standing committee, there was a deputation that was having difficulty with the impact of infill projects. And if they are designated heritage, there would be a heritage impact assessment needed, and that would be of benefit to maintaining our streetscapes. This is an important case that's coming up. It's gone all the way to the Supreme Court. As part of the provincial ACO decision, ACO is seeking intervenor status in a case that involves the municipality of Oakville's right to assign a heritage cultural landscape designation to a property known as the Glen Abbey Golf Course. There are already housing developments around it, but they are proposing to do away with the golf course and build a housing development. And this is right on the watershed and on the 16 Mile Creek. And I believe from our lectures that I told you about before, GTLLI, that there is a water aquifer under the property. ACO will support the right of the municipality to designate properties under the Ontario Heritage Act. And this case may set a precedence for other communities in Ontario. So it could have an impact here in Collingwood as well. We also have contributed to Collingwood's community-based strategic plan for arts and culture, and specifically heritage. So with some guidance from Ms. Skinner, we followed the pattern that she has developed, and we came up with some objectives that we thought were really important, and we created action items that we thought could help us meet those objectives. So we want to provide opportunities for learning about our rich heritage. We want to support heritage designations, Part 5 and Part 4, and maintain the recognition of well-established heritage downtown and the surrounding streetscapes. We'd like to strengthen the Heritage Advisory Committee, and we gave our advice based on many of us being committee members, and we would hope that some of these would help going forward. And involving the community is so important. The partnerships of so many community groups add strength to our community. Our future aims and objectives. ACO Collingwood aims to continue building community partnerships to strengthen Collingwood's rich and vital heritage. Our strong heritage builds on the pillars of society to build a sustainable community with cultural vitality, strong economic health, environmental responsibility, and community involvement. I feel very strongly that heritage gives us a sense of place. This is where we belong. This is our community. We, as members of ACO, want to preserve and to protect our heritage. Thank you very much for listening to ACO's Deputation for Heritage Week.
Thank you very much. Council, any questions or comments? Thank you very much, Ms. Mooney. Item 7.2 is deputation from my friend's house about the Red Walk and raising awareness for my friend's house, this important institution, and Julie LeBlanc is here. Come forward, please, Julie. You have 10 minutes.
What a pleasure. Mr. Mayor, Council of Collingwood, I am so pleased to be up here tonight. And before I do the official spiel, I just really want to tell you personally how proud I am that every man on council is taking a stand against gender-based violence tonight. No other council that I could find in Ontario can boast the same thing. So thank you so much for being such great leaders and how the women on our council are so strong in our community. I get a little proud sometimes. I wanted to open and with that, but I also want to tell you the reason that we do what we do. The goal of the Walk a Mile in Her Shoes, or now we are doing it in a new format called the Red Shoe Walk, is a fun way that attracts a lot of attention to open conversations that are really uncomfortable and really serious about violence against women. And in this day and age, statistics remain the same as when I went to university many years ago. It's still 1 in 4 women, which means women you know, women you care about, women that you love, are somebody's going to get hurt along the way. Wasn't that, in fact, it was this very campaign where somebody really smart, a good friend of mine, said it's 2020, why are men still such jerks? Jerks was not the word, however, you get the idea. So I started to think about it, and I started to think about all the cyclical things that happen when a man abuses his wife in front of his children. And now those children grow up with that anger and that knowledge and that pattern. And that's where my friend's house gets to make a real difference. The therapy that happens and the changes that happen as a result of having that kind of support changes everything. We just recently had a woman that came to us after she'd been brutalized, for lack of a better term, brutal violence, where she was made to kneel and be berated and bruised and beaten in front of her children who had to watch and learn. And she came, and she got out, and she came to us. And he was so enraged when she left that he had her charged with assault, said that she hit him. So now she's before the criminal courts, and her children have to stay with him because she's been charged with assault. We have legal supports that are really smart, and we are connected to some really wonderful family lawyers, and CIS was involved. And today, this woman has counseling for her and her children. She has sole custody. He has supervised access. And all the right things are happening, but it doesn't always happen that way. Without support, lives are changed forever. But because of you and the leadership that you provide and the community that we live in, we're not keeping those dirty little secrets anymore. We are standing up and we are saying gender-based violence is wrong and we're not going to stand for it. And you're doing that as men on council by wearing the red shoes and making a big production so everybody's looking at you and asking why you're wearing them, and you get to say, because we're breaking cycles and we're making sure that supports are in place, and the money raised helps us do that because, well, we have a $400,000 budget after funding, just to make sure that you don't just have a safe place to land, but you will be supported all the way through your healing process. That was my big thing. I just wanted to make sure that you understood the importance of why a big splashy campaign like Red Shoe Walk is a big deal, because the more people that look and the more people that ask you about it, you get a chance to take a stand against violence against women, and we can break that cycle and our future can look a lot different and a lot healthier. So thank you all.
It's our pleasure. We're going to do a photo op, but before we do that, are there any questions or comments? Julie, I have one. When I started doing the walk 4 or 5 years ago, the target was $200,000, and now you mentioned it's $400,000. Why is that?
For a couple of reasons. Thank you for asking that, because it's important to note that while costs go up and the need doesn't decrease, our funding has been cut, like a lot of funding. We are down, just provincially, we are down $80,000 from what we received last year, but our costs continue to increase. So you imagine that not everybody is getting the same amount that they used to, but the costs keep increasing, and we are not ever going to turn somebody away because we don't have the money to help. Not while we have the option to reach out to an amazing community like this.
All right, I'm going to ask the members of council wearing red pumps, please go up on picture opportunity.
Steve's having a hard time.
Gentlemen. Yeah, I always wanted to go on the wrong team. Come up front, put it?
Yeah, I'll come up for this one.
Why don't you get the all right, very well done, thank you.
Look at my sensible shoes. I've earned mine, right?
Ready here? 3, 2, 1. Ready? 3, 2, 1.
Amazing, thank you so much. Gentlemen, thank you so very much. Heel toe.
Keep these till next year. So we can keep these?
Hang on to them, I'll get a hold of them back.
So you-
Down with them. Thank you to all the women on council, the leadership that you provided our community, and International Women's Day has changed forever. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Julie. All right, item number 8, consent agenda. Who would have that?
That would be me, your worship. Moved by me, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hall. Be it resolved that the consent agenda, having been given due consideration by council, be received, and tonight that is items 8.1 through 8.4.
Thank you. So we're piloting a slightly revised process here, and that is that if somebody wants to just talk about an item, they don't have to pull it. They can do that in advance of the vote. But if you wanted to pull an item to either ask for a staff report or some direction, then you need to pull that before I call the vote. So I will ask first if there is any item that you want to pull for staff action or staff report. And failing that, before I call the vote, is there anyone that would like to comment on any specific item? Councillor Hamlin.
I just wanted to draw people's attention to the letter from the Minister of Children, Community and Social Services. It's at page 11 of the agenda. And the province is embarking on a poverty reduction strategy. And so there's a 30-minute survey apparently that's online. And they're seeking ideas from people, just ordinary community members, on how they can encourage job creation, provide people with right supports and services, and lower the cost of living and make life more affordable. And apparently, as part of this new strategy, they're going to set a target for poverty reduction and identify indicators to measure progress, which would be somewhat unusual on my. So I just wanted to encourage everyone around the table and anyone who's listening to complete the survey. Thank you.
Thank you. And you can send it by email to prso@ontario.ca. And I'm not sure what the link is to the actual survey. Did you see it there, Councillor Hamlin?
Yeah, it just says to, let's see that.
Ontario.ca/poverty survey,
Yes, that's it.
the first paragraph.
That's right. Ontario.ca/poverty survey.
All right, good. Okay, if there's no other comments then, I will call the vote. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. We have no reports or minutes of other committees. Standing committee reports, corporate community services. Councillor McLeod.
Thank you, Your Worship. We don't do the polling business here. I just go through item 10. Yes, thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Vice Chair Comey. Be it resolved that Council received the Corporate and Community Services Standing Committee report from the meeting held February 3rd, 2020, and hereby approve the recommendations contained within the report as presented, including item 10.1.1, the minutes of various committees and boards, Collingwood Downtown BIA Board of Management minutes from December the 12th of 2019, the Museum Advisory Committee minutes from November the 21st of 2019, the Trails Advisory Committee minutes from December 11th of 2019, as well as item 10.1.2, which is PRC 2020-01, Town of Collingwood Urban Forest Management Plan, 10.1.3 PRC 2020-02 Memorial Tree and Bench Policy as amended, and 10.1.4 CCS 2020-02 IT Steering Committee update, and 10.1.5 Harborview Park and Sunset Point Park update presentation.
Thank you. So before I call the vote, is there any council member that would like to pull any of those specific items? Councillor Doherty.
Thank you, Your Worship. 10.1.2, the Urban Forest Management Plan, please.
Okay. Councillor Hammond.
That one as well, and also 10.1.5, Harborview Park and Sunset Point Park update.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've got those two pulled, so I will call the vote on the balance. All in favor? That is carried unanimously. Councillor Doherty, 10.1.2.
Yes, thank you very much. So I wanted to obviously express my endorsement and support for this study. It certainly was long-awaited, and it is very timely in terms of our community effort to increase our green initiatives in Town Hall and throughout the community, and more importantly, our declaration of a climate crisis and how trees generally help to mitigate the effects of climate change and stormwater runoff. The one disappointment for me coming out of this report was the fact that while it is mentioned that a private tree preservation bylaw should be part of the longer-term plan for a comprehensive urban forest management plan, the timing has been postponed into, to have it completed by 2022, so that in effect to have a bylaw and implementation by 2023, it's quite a few years out. So in the meantime, according to the study, 75% of our urban canopy here in Collingwood is on private land. That's number one. Number two, we see a great deal of development applications coming forward. We see a great number of infill applications coming forward. Most of this infill is happening in the older parts of our community, where also our oldest and most iconic trees are. So what I would like to just mention, and I will bring this forward in the future as well, if we can, as we begin the implementation of this plan, increase the priority for the private tree preservation strategy and bylaws, so that we can get a hold of and protect these trees on these lands, private lands.
Thank you for the comment. Duly noted. Any other comments, council? Seeing none before the call vote, I would like to comment because I was not at the standing committee meeting. I'm very excited about this urban forest tree management plan, and in doing some research looking at other communities, I note that with almost 32% of canopy cover in Collingwood presently, we are extremely ahead of the grade compared to many municipalities from Toronto to Montreal, which are in the low 20s, Vancouver, which has 18%, Halifax has over 40. Ottawa has 18%, Gatineau has about 30%, and in Oakville they're at 27.8%, and Winnipeg, Manitoba, they're at 20%. So we've done this, I think, at a very opportune time when our canopy is fairly healthy. And so protecting it, managing it as if it is an asset, I'm absolutely in favor of. And so I think this is an exciting project. And the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority in 2013 did a report, and they found the health of our forest to be good and approximately right where we are today. So we're at an opportune time where we can make sure that we protect our forest canopy, and moving forward look at other ways to enhance that. But this is a good starting ground, and we will see moving forward that there will be requirements for our town budget moving forward annually, starting with a forestry staff member. And certainly that's a good opportunity for us to work with the County of Simcoe that has the largest managed forest in Ontario and probably Canada, which dates back to 1922 when they saw just the devastation to the environment from clear cut. So now we've moved ourselves quite far ahead of the curve, and so it's an exciting opportunity for us to make sure that we are good stewards for our canopy moving forward. So with that said, I think we have a separate resolution then for this item, 10.1. Okay, so it's been moved by Councillor McLeod, seconded by Councillor Comey, that item 10.1.2, the Town of Collingwood Urban Forest Management Plan be adopted as presented. All in favor? That is passed unanimously. And then we have 10.1.5, Councillor Hamlin.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe this might be a question of Dean Culver. This relates to a presentation he made to that committee concerning an update to Harborview Park's building out of all the wonderful facilities that are planned. And my question was simply whether the boardwalk that was subject to a fire a couple of years ago will be considered as part of this update to Harborview Park, and if there's any timing known around the completion of that boardwalk.
Director Culver.
Thank you, Your Worship, to Councillor Hamlin. The boardwalk is not a part of the project that I presented at the standing committee, but it is a project underway. We posted the tender today, so we're looking to secure a contractor, and as soon as we do, I'll have a better sense of what the timing for completion might look like.
Oh, that's great. Thanks so much.
Good, thank you. So then I will move by Councillor McLeod, seconded by Councillor Comey, that item 10.1.5, Harborview Park and Sunset Point Park update presentation be received. All in favor? That is carried unanimously. And before we move on from the subject, I just wanted to point out that the Urban Forest Management Plan, $96,000, was funded through FCM. So that's a big win, and just another reason why having representation at these higher levels is very critical. So thank you, Councillor Sheffer. Standing Committee 10.2, Strategic Initiative Standing Committee Report. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Saunderson. It's moved by me, seconded by Councillor Comey. Be it resolved that the Council received the Strategic Initiative Standing Committee report from its meeting held February the 5th, 2020, and hereby approve the recommendations contained within the report as presented. 10.2.1, Public Works 2020-04 Water and Wastewater Rate Study. 10.2.2, and if you're okay with this, me reading it, approve the interim appointment of Deputy Mayor Hollis, the member of the Collingwood BIA Board of Management, and report back to Council within approximately 6 months.
So is there any item that Council would like to pull before I call the vote? Want to comment? Okay, go ahead and comment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With respect to 10.2.1, again, I think a very positive thing seen through the report. I did have one comment from a couple of members in the public. They would have liked to have been able to calculate their bill based on a model, and I think that's something that we could have done very easily in terms of the public input portion of it, so people could have had an educated process. So for next round, it's something we can keep under our hat.
Thank you for that. We noted. So unless there's any other comments, I will call the vote then. All in favor? That is carried unanimously. And I would just comment that actually in discussions with the clerk pursuant to 10.2.2 in the BIA, I understand that pursuant to section 3.3 of the procedural bylaw, I as mayor am an ex officio member of all committees and boards of council. And so I will be attending with the deputy mayor over the next 6 months BIA meetings. Seeing no more staff reports, we're then into item 12, motions. 12.1.
I have that, Mayor Saunderson.
Thank you, Councillor Madigan, go ahead.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Jeffrey. Whereas the Collingwood Community-Based Strategic Plan requires the annual reaffirm of the Council Code of Conduct by all members of Council, therefore be it resolved that Council herein reaffirm we have read and continue to understanding and adhere to the Council Code of Conduct. I apologize. Read it actually.
I think you read it literally and
I did,
understand.
so I just don't want to go off script, so it made no sense, but therefore be it resolved that Council here and reaffirm that we have read and continue to understand and adhere to the Council Code of Conduct. Thank you very much.
Before I call vote, I'll look to the clerk to see, can I explain the background of why we're doing this?
Certainly through your worship to members of council and the public. The Code of Conduct is an accountability and an integrity document for members of council, also our local boards, and to a slightly lesser degree, our advisory committees. Attaining the elected position within one's community is a privilege which carries significant responsibilities and obligations. So members of council are held to a higher standard as leaders of our community, and they are expected to become well informed on all aspects of municipal governance, administration, planning, and operations. They are also expected to carry out their duties in a fair, and impartial, transparent, and professional manner. The Code of Conduct reinforces the Town of Collingwood's accountability and transparency policies and other relevant legislation. The code serves to enhance public trust and improve the quality of public administration and governance by encouraging high standards of conduct on all part of government officials, ensuring that those members share a common standard of integrity through adherence to its principles. There's a few key components that the Town of Collingwood's code does carry, and those include transparency and openness in decision making, the improper use of influence for any other purpose than for the exercise of your official duties, discreditable conduct. All members have the duty to treat members of the public, one another, and staff appropriately without abuse, bullying, or intimidation. Conduct respecting staff, which is now supplemented also by the new council staff relation policy that was adopted by council last year. There's also communications and media relations component of it, which is also supplemented by our communications protocol. There's a gift and benefits section that expressly provides that no member shall accept a fee, advance, gift, or personal benefit unless recognized within a very specific and limited exception list. And your professional development obligations use the town resources in obtaining public input. That's also followed up within the complaint, within the document, the complaint protocol. And I don't know if the public is fully aware, but we do have a third party that is contracted to provide our integrity commissioner services, and all that information is available on our website. So if anyone ever has any questions, they're welcome to contact us, and we can help you review those documents.
Thank you, Clerk. Council, any questions or comments? Councillor Berman.
Thank you, Mayor Saunderson. Through you to the clerk, I think just a couple of clarifications. In the Code of Conduct, 19.2, the annual report from the Integrity Commissioner, it says we're supposed to receive one not less than 60 days after December 31st. And I stand to be corrected, did we get one last year? And either way, this year's would be coming up any day now, so.
Certainly, I believe in my many emails, I think that the Clerk's Department has received the document, so we'll make sure that it's published and provided to members of council. And then I'll look into the 2019 or 18's presentation too.
If I'm not mistaken, we didn't get that one. Because it would have been right at the start.
It became mandatory in March of 1st of 2019, and so I don't believe that there was one at that point because we were using the Ombudsman's office.
Okay, that's great. I mean, would the report the new one would have everything, A through D that's listed under. Okay, perfect. And then my second for clarification was, you referenced the council staff relations. We talked about that via email. So this wasn't to be included in what we were reaffirming tonight, but I was wondering, timeline, if how you see this rolling out, I guess, as to, because it was addressed, what was in here was addressed just a few weeks ago at the February 3rd meeting, so I think the sooner we could get at it, the better.
Well, go ahead.
Certainly, through your worship to Councillor Berman, for clarification and to the public as well. So it is a requirement of our community-based strategic plan to do an annual reaffirmation of the code of conduct. And now that we're doing the refresh and we have a number of other additional accountability and transparency policies in place, I think that is something that we'll be including to have an annual reaffirmation and reminder of all of those policies that enhance public trust and the integrity in public or municipal government.
That's it.
Yeah, I guess so. Would that be this time next year? I'm not sure from the community strategic plan last term, do we do this every year or is this a one-off? Or
He plans to do it every year.
okay, great. So that would be included. Perfect. Thank you.
So, I mean, it's a good discussion, and this is obviously a very critical point of council's evolution in terms of transparency and accountability. And as it's fluid, I guess what we're saying here, and as the clerk pointed out, some changes were made in March. It wouldn't be retroactive to the prior year, but certainly moving forward, we'll be catching these things on an annual basis and including them moving forward. And it's all designed to make sure that the public is confident that we are carrying out our responsibilities in an open and accountable way. All right. Are there any other comments or questions, council? Seeing none, then I will call the vote. All in favor? That is carried unanimously. Thank you for that, your comments. So we're over to 13, bylaws. We have none. Notices of motion. Any notices of motion around the table? Seeing none. County report. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Saunderson. I like the addition of the piece that was put out by the county, and hopefully members of council and the public have had an opportunity to read through that as the highlight package in terms of what the county is working on, some of the key takeaways from previous meetings during that particular time period. One thing that I'd like to bring to this table's attention, further to what was last put out in the marketing piece anyways, is that at our last meeting, the county, we approved $1.2 million in funding for homeless prevention system funding, as well as for youth transitional housing, a youth transitional housing initiative. That was a separate fund to the tune of $200,000 and $300,000, which I'll come to in a second. The $1.2 million, though, I'm just going to read this verbatim. This week, Council approved $1.2 million for funding in 2021 to assist more than 30 service providers to deliver a wide array of homeless prevention supports and service throughout the county. Services through the county Community Homelessness Prevention Initiative, and that acronym is known as CHIPPY, including supportive housing, emergency shelters, and supportive transitional housing. The agency locally here within the town of Collingwood was the Barbara Wirehouse or Home Horizon that received that funding to the tune of, I believe, $80,000. So that's good news for the town of Collingwood. That is part of the ongoing commitment from the County of Simcoe for their 10-year affordable housing and homelessness prevention strategy. The other that I just mentioned to the tune of $200,000 and $300,000 was specific to a program out of Barrie through Youth Haven. So a building and a property known as the Morton House that was set to close in February of 2020, or this month. And it was offered to Youth Haven, which is a youth transitional housing program, on a lease-free basis. And so council approved $200,000 for funding of Youth Haven, with an additional $300,000 in operating costs for a one-year period to get this up and off the ground. And I mention that because it is a program that I know that has been used by youth within the town of Collingwood in the past, and hopefully it's something that will benefit all of the members, the 16 members of the county, even though it is located within the separated city of Barrie. So I just wanted to mention those two items in addition to the items that went out as part of your council package.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Any questions or comments, council? Seeing none, then we will move on to item 16.1, old or deferred business. Any old or deferred business? Seeing none, 16.2, other business, and 16.2.1, prioritization of pending list items. CAO?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. So the list has been provided, and we've attempted to bundle the items based on our assessment of the taking a more thematic approach. So council has the benefit of having similar items travel together when they come before council or shortly thereafter. So the attempt was to try and put like items together. Obviously, not all items can be bundled, so there are quite a few standalone items. And there are a few items that don't appear on the list, but those items are eminent in terms of their presentation before council. For example, the proceeds from the asset sales will be coming to council shortly, so that's not on the list. And there are one or two other items that have already been scheduled for council's agenda or committee of council, but it's not, those items are not shown on the list. So if there are questions, I can answer those questions, but the color code was to try and put similar items together and provide a bit of a contextual framework to facilitate a more informed decision-making process.
Thank you, CAO. Council, any questions or comments? Councilor McLeod.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a question about one of the items that appears on page 1, towards the bottom of the page, item number 2, resolution number 192-2018 or 2018, regarding a staff report addressing timeframes for planned developments that have more than one phase. And the suggestion of its time arrival is to be decided. But I wonder if there is some discussion that we could have regarding that particular request, because we are in the midst of the OP review process, that for this council to have a more fulsome understanding of what is in the pipe sometime before what appears to be Q1 of 2021. And the reason I ask that is because at our Development and Operations Committee meeting last week, there were presentations that were made that were extremely emotional and regarding an infill development that had been given approval by previous council, and there was discussion around the table of that some of the rules ought to be changed regarding these types of developments and so on. And I'd like to know if there's a way that we can get that report about what is in the pipe a little bit sooner, so that perhaps we can head off at the pass a situation like we saw last week with these very upset homeowners, and an agreement from our committee that perhaps something less than desirable had taken place.
Yeah, I will pass it through the CEO, but I would like to make one distinction because I think it's important, and I think the Deputy Mayor mentioned at the the Standing Committee meeting. The situation that came before us was not actually an infill project, it was an accessory building. And so I think but that being said, I think your question is, can we deal with this sooner as opposed to later? But I think we need to be careful here to distinguish between an infill development, which is leveling and completely rebuilding on an existing lot, versus an accessory building attachment to an existing house. And the particular situation that came to us, which isn't the first one I'm aware of, was an accessory building project. So I just want to make that clear distinction. And with that said, then I will pass it to the CAO for comment.
Yeah, thank you. I was trying to understand the question as well. I mean, I think there are a number of issues that we can bring forward in advance of the official plan. I think we've got to decide whether or not we've got the resources and the ability to do it, and do it in a way that is comprehensive and far-reaching, and evidence-based. I mean, right now, our planning department is fairly stretched with the work they're doing on the official plan and all the development applications that they have under review. In terms of applications in the pipeline, that's different from applications that might be requests for minor variance or accessory building or infill. The developments that are in the pipeline are readily available and have been made available to this council on a number of occasions, and I think that information is also available on the website, Director Farr. So that information is readily available. If you're asking for information on detailed applications dealing with infill or dealing with accessory building applications, which are more zoning bylaw issues, then that's going to take a bit of work for us to go in and get that done. We can do it, but I'm not sure what the value added is in advance of the work we're doing on the official plan.
And I guess without trying to complicate this more, Councillor McLeod, on the second page, number 16, which is not bundled, it's a separate item, talks about the request that staff review the opportunity for review of a zoning policy specific to infill housing and potential overlay and determine when it would be appropriate to bring it forward and determine the scope of the request. And that, I think, has a Q2 of this year, if I'm reading this correctly.
Yeah, thank you, and that's a good point. And in the discussion we had the last time, we did agree as staff to bring forward a report to council to articulate what the resources would be required to facilitate an acceleration of this review. And that's a report that will come forward in Q2, which would be a report to tell you what kind of resources you might need to accelerate this one off in advance of the official plan.
That's it.
It certainly does. Thank you very much. And there's a good reason that I'm on one committee and not on the other, obviously. And but I do think that the concern that I'm expressing is not one that is unfamiliar to anybody who watched that meeting and or who lives in town and sees these things happening and doesn't understand why. And so that's what I was trying to capture in that question. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor McLeod. I have Councillor Hamlin and then Councillor Doherty. So Councillor Hamlin, go ahead.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a few comments, and I'll just start with commenting on Councillor McLeod's issue, because I also am concerned that doesn't get minimized or left behind. And I know that the chart here talks about rear yard provisions to be explored. And I know our discussion was, and I did confirm with our Director of Planning today, that the review and report that will be done with respect to what's required will be more than rear yard setbacks. And we'll also look at side yards and front yards and other things that might be relevant. And I also hope, and I heard you, Mr. Mayor, suggest that what we're talking about is new build. And I fully appreciate that is where we get a lot of problems. But in fact, the two more serious issues we've had that have come to this council have been people taking existing structures and building them from lot line to lot line. So I am hoping, and perhaps this is a question through you, Mr. Mayor, to Director Farr, that this report he's doing will be more than the strict definition of infill, and will pick up other forms of, massive development on a property.
No, and that was the purpose of the comment. It's not just the infill that we're looking at, it's the accessory building bylaw, and I certainly look to the CAO or Director Farr to confirm that, but it's not, it goes beyond just the infill, because you're correct to the situations that I'm aware of were technically accessory buildings that got much larger than we anticipated, and I think that's we're just making sure that it covers that. It's not strictly an infill.
And also, I think we're just on the same issue. I think we're all aware of how pressed our planning department is, given not just our official plan review, but all of the development applications that are being dealt with currently. And I noticed one of the issues that's on the list is item 4 on page 2, which was a report from staff on the possible use of the almost $600,000 from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. And I'm wondering if, when staff's looking at how they can deal with some of these issues, one being this infill report. If resources are required to retain a consultant, that they could have a look and see whether those funds in part could be used.
I'll turn it to the CAO.
Yeah, thank you. Those funds cannot be used to fund regular town business. I mean, I think we're looking at innovative operational efficiency, enhancement of customer service, those kinds of things, not what we would normally do as part of our core business. That those funds are not meant for those purposes.
I hear you, CEO Amanda, and through you, Mr. Mayor. I believe I recall some email exchange with our treasurer at the time this request was made, and that there was quite a long list of things that the funds could be used for. So perhaps I'll just have a look at that again and see, because I do think this infill question is a really serious one for our community, and that we need to find the funds to do this. So this will be, I guess, part of what's unfolded. And my related question is with respect to items 9 and 10 on page 1 of this list. And this has to do with the traffic calming study that we would like to have undertaken, and included in that, as it's described here, methods of unstructured play. And this, of course, was something I was speaking to last year. And I hear this from our new families that move into town. I think a lot of them with children move here because they want to have quieter, safer streets for their kids. And they don't want the traffic at, I'll use a crazy example, Young and Eglinton for their kids. They want ones that are safe. And so to me, together with the infill, this is the other matter that's so important. And I wouldn't like to see it left because we don't have the funds either to retain the consultant needed. So I just make the same request that if these funds, and I'll have a look myself too, whether these funds could be used to assist that. And I think that was all that I wanted to mention in particular. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hammond. Councillor Doherty.
Thank you. My question also was going to be in regard to zoning policy as it relates to accessory building. And I believe that I do have the answer to my question, that we are generally using the word infill to address both new builds and zoning for accessory buildings, because that certainly seems to be where we have observed a number of problems of late throughout the community.
Well, I think staff has that we're dealing with infill and the accessory to the extent that these issues have arisen. I don't know if it needs to be. Director Farr, is there need to be any change in that language, or do you understand that the intent of council?
I understand the intent of council.
Okay, so I think we're covered there.
Thank you.
Okay. CEO?
Thank you, Worship. I just want to make a comment on the one-time fund that was given to us by the Ministry of Municipal Affairs, and I guess the emphasis is on one-time fund, and we shouldn't be using this money for recurring municipal expenditure. If we do, then I think we've got to find a similar amount to fund on an annual basis. So this is one-time efficiency money to help us improve the operations of the municipality, and in my opinion, should not be used for recurring expenditures.
Thank you for the clarification. All right, any other comments or questions, Council? Councillor Jeffrey.
Thank you, Mayor Saunderson. Firstly, to say that this was an eye-opener of a process, and I appreciate it very much. Mine's just just a point of clarification. Individual item number 12 regarding the feasibility of the town of Collingwood participating in the FCM International Development Programming, which will come up in Q4. But I'm wanting to know if that motion or that report impacts my ability to participate as a board member at FCM. I've been asked to help develop the programs for global women leadership in a $26 million project. I want to make sure that I still have the authority to proceed with that. FCM would cover those costs. This staff report would be simply the hosting and traveling portion for staff or town resources. So
I'll look
I want to just make sure I'm okay on that.
Good, I'll look to the CAO.
Yeah, thank you, Worship, and yes, you're okay with that, Councillor. The other thing I would add as well is that if we receive any requests in the interim to provide any resources, i.e. staff, to facilitate any of these events, we'll try and do so as well.
Okay.
This report was to try and capture the initiative as a whole, but I think in advance of a report coming to council, if we do get requests from FCM to participate, we'll consider those requests one-off, and this doesn't impact on your ability to participate fully in what you're doing now with FCM.
Thank you.
So does not require any action. Is there any other business? Councillor Burke.
Thank you, Mayor Saunderson. I have a couple of things that they tie into sort of the accountability and transparency that we're talking about under the Code of Conduct, but I didn't think they were appropriate under there. And I guess I'm looking maybe for some guidance. There was a story that came out in Collingwood today that made me think of this this week, and it was trying to explain our council's extra pay for extra meetings and attendance, and I actually didn't really understand fully what the story was about, but it made me think that I am a believer that all information that can be made public should be made public. And the two of the things that popped into my head, and one may not be ready yet, I guess through you to the treasurer, is our 2019 council expenses, itemized expenses. Are they usually out?
Through you, Your Worship, we have a March 31st deadline. I believe this year that the clerk and I have talked about it. I have the numbers ready. We'll be sending out your individual expenditures for you this week to review and make sure that we have captured everything in that. And the clerk is going to add some policy items to the staff report, so it should come to the March 4th SIC meeting for council.
That's great. So I guess my question is, being the first one with it, is that something that, even though it comes to council, that is usually given to the media, or you wait for the media to ask for it?
Through you again, Your Worship, we would normally wait for, it is an annual requirement from the ministry, so it would be out there once a year. I believe that when we've kind of actually caught up a little bit at this point in time, so that your expenses will be posted on the website more frequently this coming year. We would provide that information to the media and then asked normally. That's the way.
Okay, because I guess where that does tie in with the Code of Conduct is that we do have an obligation to attend things and to educate ourselves. So I was hoping that an itemized list would be available to the public. And the second thing, which is, it's great because it's already on our town website, except that we would have to look it up ourselves, and it ties into the Collingwood Today story, was attendance. So they described attendance at meetings, so they described how much councillors were paid for extra meetings, but they didn't really tie it into that related to whether they attended the extra meetings. So our town website, in 10 minutes, anybody could look up what the attendance for all members of council are at council meetings, SIC meetings, and the other two committee meetings. So I guess what I wanted to ask is if there was an appetite around council to make this information more readily available in context to the public, rather than wait for somebody a member of the media to have to ask for it and then come up with their own context for it.
Okay, and just Marjorie, to get confirmation, I think you indicated that the information is going to be posted on the website. So, and at that point in time, it's disclosed to the press. Is that correct?
To you, Your Worship, we would post basically just your itemized expenditures from your professional development accounts, because those are the ones we track every month. And it's actually the clerk's office that handles the special meetings and provides those to
payroll in order for you to get your per diems for that. So I'm going to say I would assume that between clerks and finance, we could get together and post those numbers at the same time as they came out.
Does that assist?
Yeah, again, it was just the overlying question of whether we can do a better job of getting information out to the public in a proper context rather than waiting and hoping that the media come and ask a question. Can we be the lead on getting the information that the public are entitled to out to the public?
And I thought that's what, as I understand what we're being told, and maybe I'll phrase this as a question to the clerk. What type of information is available on our website in terms of attendance, voting records, council expenditures on a daily basis? If somebody goes onto the town's website, what can they find out about the actions of council?
So certainly, if you go onto the municipal website, through your worship, members of council and the public, there is a portal that you go in to look at council committees and boards, the meetings and agendas. And in that layer, you can search for attendance records and voting records. You can either put it in by member, you can put it in by committee or board or council, and it'll show what the voting records were.
Pausing because that person is bringing it up for us right now.
A clear tab there that indicates the voting and attendance records. That's the fields that you can include if you go down a little lower there. And you can select your meeting types, you can select the members, and it will populate for the past year.
And if you wanted to find out information about council expenses, where would that be? Treasurer Leonard?
To your worship, we're just finalizing the ones for 2019, and then we will post that up there. We'll put the announcement out on Engage Collingwood when it's ready to go. But you will be receiving your draft reports this week.
So I guess Councilor Byrne, to tie this up, we're looking at trying to make that information available, and it'll be out there. Yeah. Good, okay. Anything else? What? Are you finished? Yeah, okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor.
To support my colleague across the table though, the point is that nobody knows how to access that information. And I think from time to time, it's unfortunate Mr. Edwards isn't here from the press, but my favorite word is behoove. It would behoove us to maybe put out a press release saying, here's the information and here's where you can find it. And if we did that maybe on a quarterly basis, those who are interested would then be comfortable and able to find the information on their own.
Thank you. The other option is for us to make it a bit easier to find on our website. So, we'll look at those options and hopefully we'll make the improvements that we can.
Minutely, and then once we've made them, we'll have a session about how to find them. We have a plan. Any other business? So our in-camera session has been put forward to next week, February 24th. So we have the confirmatory bylaw. Who would have that?
I have that.
Councillor Doherty.
Mr. Mayor, moved by me and seconded by Councillor Jeffrey. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2020-007, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the regular meeting of council held February 18th, 2020, be enacted and passed this 18th day of February 2020.
Thank you. I will call the vote then. All in favor? That is carried unanimously, and we need a motion for an adjournment from somewhere over in that range over there at the end of the table maybe. Councillor Jeffrey, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much, everyone. Good meeting.